before really defining what operant conditioning is, let's first look at Bruce Frederick Skinner. So Bruce Frederick Skinner is the father of operant conditioning. He believed that we do have such thing as mind, but it is more productive to study observable behavior rather than internal mental events. He also believed that the best way to study observable behavior is to look at its causes and its consequence. So he introduced a new term into the law of reinforcement. It means that a behavior that is reinforced tends to be strengthened, and a behavior that is not reinforced is weakened or can be extinguished. So he studied operant conditioning by conducting experiments using animals which he put in a Skinner box. So Skinner also identified 3 types of responses or operant that can follow behavior, which are neutral operants, reinforcers, and punishers. Neutral operants are a response from the environment that neither increase or decrease the probability of a behavior to be repeated. The reinforcers, whether negative or positive reinforcement, tend to strengthen or increase the chance of a behavior being repeated, and the punishers, which decrease the chance and or probability of a behavior being repeated. So to have a better idea about how really Bruce Frederick Skinner conducted his experiments, let's look at the video that I given.
Can pigeons read? This one gives every indication, because he's been taught to distinguish between 2 words and to behave appropriately. He's learned his different response to each sign by being rewarded with food. So the bird isn't acting independently. Its behavior is shaped by controlling its environment. The first task was to isolate an individual piece of behavior and see how that could be changed. Skinner did this by keeping individual pigeons at about 3/4 of their normal weight, so that the birds were always hungry, and food could be used as an automatic reward. The pigeon was studied in a uniform box, one it quickly grew used to. One piece of behavior, pecking a coloured disc, was measured on a graph. The pigeon learned that pecking the disc produced a reward. Then the behavior of pecking could be studied in relation to how often that reward was offered, or in Skinner's terms, what was the schedule of reinforcement.
The main thing is what we call schedules of reinforcement. Reinforcement is what the layman calls reward, and you can schedule it so that a reward occurs every now and then when a pigeon does something. We usually use a response with a pigeon pecking a little disc, a little spot in the wall, and you can reinforce with food, but you don't reinforce every time. Perhaps every 10th time, or perhaps only once every minute or something like that. There are a very large number of schedules, and they have their special effects. And there is a good example of how you can move from the pigeon to the human case, because one of the schedules which is very effective with rats or pigeons is what we call the variable ratio schedule, and that is at the heart of all gambling devices, and has the same effect. The pigeon can become a pathological gambler just as a person can. Now, the fact that we found that out with pigeons and could prove it by removing and changing the schedule makes it easy for it to interpret the case with the human subject. We don't say that the human subject gambles to punish himself, as the Freudians might say, or gambles because he feels excited when he does so. Nothing of the sort. People gamble because of the schedule of the reinforcement that follows, and this is true of all gambling systems. They all have variable ratios built into them. So what we've learned from the pigeon, it made it possible to interpret this vast field very effectively.
Where does that leave free will? Because we all think we have a choice of whether to do things or not to do things.
Yes. Well, you see, it leaves it in the position of a fiction. We have assumed somehow or other that these internal states, feelings, and so on have initiated something. They have started something. They have created. We have done something in a voluntary way. We have willed to act. If you now look at the actual history, we find that there are external reasons why this has happened. In other words, by discovering the causes of behavior, we can dispose of the imagined internal cause. We dispose of free will as an American divine of the 18th century, Jonathan Edwards, did. He said, we believe in free will because we know about our behavior, but not about its causes. And of course, it's the object of a science of behavior to discover causes. And once you have found those causes, there is less you need to attribute to an internal act of will, and eventually, I think, we need to attribute nothing to it.
Let's proceed with the reinforcement. When we say reinforcement, is to strengthen a behavior by means of rewarding or removing all unpleasant behavior. We have a two classification of it. We have the positive one and the negative one. When we say positive, is to strengthen a behavior by presenting a motivating items such as stamps, stickers, foods like ice cream, chocolates, phrases, and acknowledging the good words. And when we say negative reinforcement, it is a removing or stopping an unpleasant behavior as a result of behavior that is acceptable. This also means to increase the behavior of a person. Here is an example of the positive. Mother gave her daughter a chocolate for cleaning up her toys. This chocolate is a reward for a children for cleaning up their toys. And then the negative one is teacher sends students from the final test. They had a perfect attendance. This behavior will probably increase the behavior will continue.
Okay, now I will be discussing about the punishment. So punishment is defined as the opposite of reinforcement, since it is designed to weaken or eliminate a response rather than increase it. So we have two types of punishment, which is the positive and the negative punishment. So positive punishment, this is adding something after an undesirable behavior to decrease the chance of repetition. For example, hitting a child after a bad behavior. So hitting a child with the use of the hammer and belt. So the next one is the negative punishment. Negative punishment is removing something after an undesirable behavior to decrease the chance of repetition. For example, taking a thing such as mobile phone off the shelf after a bad behavior. So next.
For the classroom application, we prepared a simple activity that will measure your understanding on what you have learned today. So, you will be divided in two groups. Each group will be given pictures which you will place in the category where they belong, whether they are positive or negative reinforcement and positive or negative punishment. Because the picture shows a motivating items to the person after the good behavior. Negative reinforcement, they remove an unpleasant behavior by removing the adverse stimulus. In punishment, positive punishment, they added detention and others because of their bad behavior to decrease the chance of repetition. Negative punishment, because something has been removed after an undesirable behavior.
identify some of the major assumptions of the behaviors of